Imagine viewing a property you're thinking of buying, only to find out the ground beneath you is about to give way. Join me as I realize that my floor could collapse. From panic to action, stay tuned for the shocking details and how I managed to escape a near disaster. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Kelvin Silla and I've got a passion for all things property. I have over 10 years experience due to my career as a chartered surveyor and project manager in construction, where I help my clients transform their spaces. I created this channel to share my experience and explore the highs and lows of the built environment.
I'll quickly explain what's happening. I'm quite concerned because although the basement we know is damp, we can see in this corner the floor's been so damp, the conditions are so cold, which is ripe and ready for woodworm.
Let me explain what a wood-boring beetle is.
Literally is an insect that eats away at timber. So what happens, a long story short, you have an insect, which is basically a woodworm. They will literally hover on the top of a bit of wood. Because wood is very grainy, what they do is when they lay their eggs, the egg will kind of drop down underneath the surface of the wood. Once that egg is hatched and the basically larvae comes out, the little baby from the egg will literally drill and core all its way back to the surface. And you can imagine as that happens again and again, it creates dust, which is basically called frass. And that is basically the timber base you can see, and lots of frass.
I should probably give you the background on how we even found the property. So I basically found it on an open market, as you do sometimes via Rightmove. I made sure I called the agent straight away, and I was actually one of the first people to actually view the property as soon as it came live on the market. The property is a brick-built, mid-terrace property built circa early 1900s. The property comprised of 2 floors with an uninhabited loft space as well as an unconverted basement area. So automatically I knew there was scope to add value. After doing the rest of my desktop study, I knew this was a deal to go forward for. Now I gotta be honest, when looking at the property for the first time via the Rightmove link online, I didn't really pay any attention to the basement because I just thought when I get to the property, I'll then be able to just look in there and take the property at its true face value when I'm actually there. However, when I got to the door that leads down to the basement, and this is when I realized something was going on, the light wasn't working to the basement. And I thought, okay, it is what it is. But from an agent's perspective, if you're doing viewings on a property and it has a very large basement, you would want to make sure that people can get down there. So because the agent said he'll send me a video and some pictures of the basement, I left that first viewing confident that I'd seen all I needed to see. After going away and doing my numbers, I realized that the deal was actually a very good one in a good location, and I knew the exact number I would be able to offer for the deal to work for me. I submitted the offer, and actually my first offer was rejected. And why I like my first offer to get rejected, because it tells me as a prospective buyer that I'm not offering more than I should be. Because if my first offer was accepted, I'm always then got the thought in the back of my mind, did I offer too much? Maybe they would have taken 5k less. You just paid too much. So I went back in with a counter offer, which was accepted, letting me know that I haven't paid too much for this property. Now, another tip for when you're buying properties is always instruct a building survey and do a report based on a damp and timber, because I knew the property was ridden with damp and I knew there were some issues and potential additional costs. But what I told the agent is that my offer was subject to a survey. So that way they knew that although I've offered this amount at the minute, I was able to come back subject to what my survey said, because I may be taking on additional cost. Now, you may be wondering, but Kelvin, you're a chartered surveyor. Why didn't you just do the survey yourself? And this is something I always tell people that sometimes ask me to do surveys for them or give them advice is, if something goes wrong, I have no one other than myself to basically fall back on. So as a professional, I just employ other professionals who know what they're doing, are not attached to the deal, and can look at the property from a non-emotional position and basically give the true report on the findings. Another thing is, if something should go wrong or if something was missed, I then have a surveyor, a company, they've got their professional indemnity insurance that basically will support any claim for negligence that I put forward. So for me as a chartered surveyor, the best thing to do is to just employ someone else that's equally or even sometimes more qualified, more experienced in these things to do the job on my behalf. Now, this is where things got really interesting. When I got the report back, I was really shocked to see what I'd seen. The floor was not structurally sound, which basically means that it could collapse at any point. So this is a section of the report where the surveyor was talking about the comments in the basement. And I've just highlighted this excerpt here, which basically says, more concerning was the frankly bizarre construction of the ceiling, which is also the floor of the hallway and the lounge, which is hopefully going to be bedroom 1. Joists ran perpendicular to the front elevation, front of the house, and appeared to have been cut back so that they were not in the sockets, but rather were supported by a series of timber props of varying size and shape. Timber joists that have been cut back and were not in their sockets. Are you crazy? Do you know what that means? That means the floor and what's supporting it underneath should be all in the wall to add support, but they were not in the socket. Now there's me in a property that the floor could collapse.
You'll usually expect to find these tucked and tied into the brickwork, so it's actually supporting above the brick. But for whatever reason, these are cut back.
Absolutely mental. His report goes on to say 2 of these had rotted and been eaten away where they were in contact with the damp flag floor. The whole structure was swathed in various kinds of material. Virtually all of the accessible timbers were either visibly damp or gave high moisture content readings when tested. To make matters worse, the surveyor went on to say, the basement was very concerning. While I'm not a structural engineer, I did not feel that the timbers were in a safe condition. There was evidence of wet rot and insect damage to the timber props, but the whole construction seemed strange. I was genuinely perplexed by the whole scenario. And the thing that really stood out to me was that an experienced surveyor of 20 plus years viewing thousands, if not hundreds of basements, used the words, I was genuinely perplexed. That tells you he's never really come across something like this before and doesn't really know how we got here. And as always, with building surveys, there's always a section where they recommend the next steps. So his report reads, I would recommend a reputable builder or even a structural engineer to inspect the basement timbers, as I do not think they are safe.
It's an issue because, one, we need to kind of remove all the timbers in here. We also need to understand how much of the timber in the space is actually infected with the woodworm. And yeah, we need to get to the bottom of what we're going to do, how much it's going to cost me, because when I first viewed the property, I wasn't expecting this, so it's going to be an additional cost.
When I saw this, I was like, what on earth is going on? I don't want to be buying these problem properties where floors need to be replaced, a lot of demolition and stuff to rip out, a load of additional costs, and ultimately it just kills the deal. The next steps is basically for me to hire a structural engineer to understand what exactly is going on and how much it's going to cost me to do the refurb work. But I want you guys to let me know your thoughts in a comment section. What would you do if this was you in a situation? How would you feel if you've just bought a property and could potentially be spending X amount extra? Would you pull away now? Would you even hire a structural engineer? Let me know what you think in a comment section below. That's the end of the video today, guys. I'm going to leave it there and give you an update on what happened next in the next video. If you want to stay in the loop, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'll be updating the next video pretty soon to explain what happened next. Thank you so much for getting this far. I will leave a link to another video of mine, which should be very helpful in explaining a bit about HMOs and one of the projects I'm working on now. It's been great to share the story with you and look forward to joining me on the next one. Thank you.